Hey y'all, Manic here. I wanted to get a video out before the Game Awards just in case we end up getting something for the new Monster Hunter game. I'm writing something of a very loose script to hit my talking points, so I apologize if I end up rambling for quite a while on some of these topics. This isn't really a catch-all video, or we'd be here for probably 2 or more hours. I'm mainly, like I said, just hitting topics that I feel are kind of important, at least to me, that I could think of in the moment. Hopefully the video won't be too long, but if it is, I'm sorry. I'll make sure to put timestamps in here just in case. Mainly just in case if you would prefer to skim through or check if I cover any particular topics. Aside from that, I hope you all enjoy it nonetheless, and as always, feel free to discuss in the comments. I do always try to go through and read and reply as often as I can, when I can. So, let's get this started with a lot of the obvious stuff. So, the first obvious thing anyways, to me at least, the question of, is the game going to be more grounded or action arcade-like? So, if you've watched any of my videos recently, you know that I don't really see it as two different dev teams for the games. I see it as more of the grounded, immersive story style of game and the action arcade, over-the-top, and experimental style of the game. These are two different design philosophies or design styles that they go for, and usually the first game of a new generation tends to be more of the grounded style. So that's obviously where I think we're going to be going. That's what I hope for. I tend to like the grounded styles more. The next topic I had written here is gimmicks. For starters, Clutch Claw and Wire Bugs can go. I wouldn't say I'm not a fan of them, but I don't want to see them return. The Clutch Claw, most people do not like the Clutch Claw, mainly because it felt like a chore having to turn it on again, or not turn it on, but have to use it to weaken the parts to get your maximum amount of damage. The Wire Bugs in general, I do feel they work for Rise, specifically because they were built for Rise. I don't really want to see them come into another game, though. The Slinger, I mean, I don't really have a problem with the Slinger. If anything, I would say get rid of the special ammo types that the monsters can drop. They're too easily spammable, too easily gotten, and it just causes too many stagger opportunities for the monsters. If anything, take the way we can throw items in Rise and Sunbreak, for example. In World, you have to load a flash pod into your Slinger to be able to use it, but in Rise Sunbreak, you can, as long as you're looking in a direction, you can throw the flash bomb in that direction. That is much better. That's how our system should be from now on. The next step, topic, the end game grind. I would like it to be more like World and less like Rise. What do I mean by that? I mean, in the aspects of the grind per se, you know, our tempered monsters, the grind for decorations. Now granted, that's a whole nother topic. I'll cover that a little later. I don't mind the guiding lands. I don't mind the anomaly stuff if it's not too oppressive. For me, I feel Rise's systems are a little too oppressive. It takes too much of your time in general. So I would hope we see more of a World-style endgame over a Rise-style endgame. The next topic I have here is Crossplay. I don't even think I need to mention it, mainly because there's just no excuse at this point. And they've definitely shown that it's no excuse, I feel. Especially with the surveys they've been doing, the questionnaires, they really seem to have made it a priority. So I do hope we have it in the next game. Cross saves may be a bit too much of an ask, but I would hope that we get it. Cross save and cross play would be massive for Monster Hunter. I'm not even kidding. I mean, I'm one of those people that buys it on both PC and my console, my Xbox specifically. So yes, absolutely, please, by all means. Another thing I don't really think I need to mention, but I will just because it's obvious. I hope that we get a new weapon, maybe two. We're a bit due for one or two new weapons, I feel. And I've recently been re-going through the illustrations books. I have the first to the third one, and seeing some of the concept art of different weapon ideas they've had is actually fucking nuts. One weapon they had in there was like a whip sword kind of thing. And then another one that I actually really liked, it looked like a combination of a Kinsect and then like two giant blades coming out of the sides of it, and the hunter was using it kind of like a big boomerang. I feel that would be very, very interesting. They've got ideas, and I hope they capitalize on some of them. And then to finish off the obvious stuff section, my biggest concern is microtransactions. I am very passionate about this, especially considering I'm going into game design and everything. Now, granted, that may not be a big topic of game design, but me in general, I fucking hate microtransactions. In free-to-play games, sure, whatever. In games that I pay $60 to $70 for, I shouldn't be paying $20 to $30 for bullshit skins and season passes. I hope we don't see anything like that in World or in the next games. They've really fucking pushed it with Rise Sunbreak, and it beyond pisses me off. I know they got a lot of flack for the weapons. They got a lot of flack for some of the layered armor. Those types of things, yes, I think they should not be microtransactions. They should have been event quest rewards. I'm one of those people. I've been playing these games for a very long time. That's how I feel. I don't think that will change. I'm not a fan of cosmetic stuff, even hair and face paint, that kind of stuff. I don't think those should be paid cosmetics. The only thing I could see is the new stuff that they introduced, like with World, how they had those little pendants. Because I don't care. That's more just like, hey, whatever. The other thing I really don't care about is like these, I guess, the voices, because they do them after specific characters, so it's like, whatever, dude, just have fun with it, I guess. But I know it's a slippery slope. I would prefer not to see microtransactions like that at all. But that pretty much ends the obvious stuff, so let's move on to some features that I would like to return. Okay, so returning features. The first thing that came to mind, mantles and tools. From World, I actually really like the mantles and tools. Mantles, having each one for each different type of element resistance. Some crazy, interesting ones, like the glider mantle. I can't remember the name of it, but the one that if you do like a roll and it's perfectly timed, you get an attack boost, that kind of stuff. Love that stuff. The only ones I would say maybe either tone down heavily or just flat out get rid of, Rocksteady and Temporal. Unless they balance the fights properly and make it to where like they're not as broken as they are in World. Tool-wise, we had our health booster or cleanser booster. I think there was one other one. I'm a little rusty. I could be completely wrong though. But regardless, oh yeah, it was a crit booster, wasn't it? Maybe. Point is, I would like to see some more new ones, honestly. I really did like those. They were a great addition to the game, in my opinion, and I would love to see them continue to add mantles and tools. The next thing doesn't really affect me all that much, but I know it is important to some people. The housing stuff, as well as endemic life. Now, I will say with endemic life, the rarer endemic life, I absolutely love that kind of stuff, just because, sure, if I get that kind of stuff, I'll customize my room with that, just because it's like, hey, I caught this really rare thing. Fuck you, jellyfish from Hoarfrost Reach. Whatever it was called, I can't remember. God, I'm making myself laugh at my own jokes. Love it. But the housing stuff, It's not for me. I don't really care to customize my house aside from adding in the endemic life. But I know it is important to some people. Some people do have a lot of fun with it. So I do hope it comes back. That's another thing where it's like I didn't care about that monetization, but I know it is a slippery slope. I would prefer they not have monetized stuff like that, but here we are. The next thing, and this is big, hunter notes and the tracking systems. So the hunter notes over time have just exponentially gotten better. I feel at World, it was probably at its best. Rise, it was very lackluster just because you just hunt the monster a few times and then you know all you need to know. World had it kind of intertwined with the tracking system, and if you've watched my first big dose video that kind of summarized my first little segment of the playthrough, you know that I am a huge fan of the tracking system from World. It's very immersive. It adds to the game. I know some people complain about the spear bugs, but you know, or not spear bugs, sorry, fucking Christ, scout flies. I know some people complain about them, but hey, it is what it is. If anything, if the scout flies do come back, you can tone them down a little bit, make it less obvious. I think that would be fine. But the tracking, I love the tracking. If anything, I kind of hope that they could add some little touches to the hunter's notes, because one of my favorite things, and I'm gonna ramble here for a little bit, but one of my favorite things to do in like my downtime or just after I had finished everything, I loved to roam around and just follow the monsters around. A long while back when World first came out, I had an idea to kind of do like a Steve Irwin or like documentary style thing where I followed monsters around, watched their habits, watched what they did, that kind of stuff. And I just didn't have the time to do it. And I may revisit the idea just because it could be very interesting. But hey, I would love that kind of stuff to be added into the hunter nodes. Like, say you witness the monsters doing certain things and it adds information about the monsters. I think that kind of stuff would be cool. Or interesting, at least. Especially for people that are like biology nuts and lore nuts and love the monsters in general. This next little topic here, the Argosy. So I am not a fan of how they did it in World, mainly just because you get the Argosy and then you choose, do I want consumable items, monster materials, or what was it, account items? What the fuck is the point in that, man? It's so pointless. Well, it's so lackluster is a better word for it. Especially whenever we're coming down from like 3U's Argosy, which I feel was much better. I would love to see certain systems from 3U come back, especially the Argosy and the expedition style stuff. Now granted, the Guiding Lands definitely did kind of adopt that, where we went to an entirely different area and the drops we got from monsters were different. I would like to see that type of stuff come back to expeditions, and I would love to see them implement them in ways where we can get these materials, trade them to the Argosy, get like, and let's say you could get housing stuff from that kind of stuff. I mean, you could in 3U if I recall correctly. You got little statues, you could get masks, you can get all kinds of shit, man. I would also love to see, like, maybe you could get blueprints for weapons, you know, that kind of shit. I think that stuff is very interesting. And it could be a way to expand on the Argosy. But moving on, before I start rambling more. And this is a big one here for me, especially since I just played through DOS. I would love to see a revisiting of a village that is upgradable and changes as you play through the story, and as you complete requests and whatnot. It adds so much to the game, in my opinion, and it makes you feel so much more involved with the story. It makes you care about the NPCs. Absolutely it does. Don't get me wrong, I've been playing these games for so long, I get invested into the characters regardless. But I can't deny the way it feels whenever you help these characters and then see things grow around them and around you, because I mean you're part of the village. Another thing in regard to that I would love to see come back is the farms. Our systems now is just menus. I would love to see a traditional farm come back like we had in Freedom Unite, in Portable Third, in 3U. I would love to see these come back because they are great additions to the game that adds not only to the immersive aspect, but it adds to that village proponent where we are helping the village grow. Now the big difference is, like, I could even see us just saying, hey, set it up the same way, make it to where we can, over time, we just build up a box full of shit. You know, you set herbs, 10 hunts later, you're maxed out. You need to stop by your farm. The big thing of the farms in the old games, though, was that you could also mine. You could gather bugs. You could fish, usually with a harpoon or a net thing. A net caster, I think is what it was called. But in, like, Freedom Unite, for example, there was also some upgrades you could get where there was a cave that you could send a feline into with a bomb, and he would blow it up, and then he would bring you back materials. There was also the giant black sword in the cave in Freedom Unite as well, in Pock Village. So, like, that kind of stuff adds to the environment, adds to the story of the cities and whatnot. I would love to see it come back. This next one, this whole section is just fucking controversial, man. Let's go over it. Fuck it. So this topic is siege hunts, rotational weekly systems, and fests. I absolutely miss our fests. It sucks that we didn't have anything like that in Rise and Sunbreak. I also miss our rotational monster. So when I say that, I'm specifically referring to like Kolv Taroth and Safi'jiiva, for example. I do feel that adds to the online aspect of the game. It brings people in, especially whenever it first starts. It's like, hey, Kolv Taroth is up, let's get to it. You know? Same thing with Safi. The problem that people have with those is they find the hunts boring, and hey, you know what? It's just like any other fight, in my opinion. You hunt it enough, you get used to it, you don't have problems with it anymore, man. The other side of it is sieges. I am a huge proponent for, well, not proponent, but I love sieges. As much as I will bitch and complain about them while I do them, I do love the sieges. And that's mainly because I look at them as they are spectacles, they are set pieces, and they are story. One big thing, like, and just to put this into perspective, because it was something that was discussed with someone during my Lao Shan hunt in Dose. They had mentioned that Lao Shan, their big problem with Lao Shan is that he just completely ignores us, right? And, you know, I can absolutely agree with him. I do think, yes, Lao Shan should swat away at us occasionally throughout the hunt. It should stomp around, try and get us away from it. But at the same time, I have always seen the siege hunts, especially like Lao Shan, as Lao Shan, and this is something I believe we do know, that Lao Shan was running from Fatalis. In that instance, yes, Lao Shan, I think a creature is going to completely ignore everything, especially when it's the size that it is. It doesn't care about anything that's around it. Its priority is survival. That's why the only time it stops is to break the first barricade and then try to break through the gate. It's not really fighting us, it's trying to get away from the Fatalis, because if it doesn't, it will likely die. And that is something that I love about the siege fights, is that it adds so much more to that larger than life aspect of the world. We don't know what the fuck is out there aside from like, we know Dalamadurs can be massive. We know these creatures can be massive, and they should be. It's awesome. I would hope they can bring them back in a great way. The next thing, crossover events. Please, for the love of God. The Final Fantasy XIV crossover, the Witcher crossover, those were so fucking good, man. Behemoth Extremeth was one of the best fucking fights in Monster Hunter I've ever had at the time. Extremeth was so fucking hard, and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. The Ancient Lesson was just as fucking hard, but goddamn, dude, those hunts were so fun. I would love to see more hunts like that. I would love to see more crossovers like that because they're so good. My only problem with them is you may end up getting that point where things say, hey, the contract we had with you is coming up. It's gone now. That shit fucking sucks, man. Like, whenever we lose content because a contract expires, like the Assassin's Creed shit. Like, I hate losing content like that. It shouldn't happen in my opinion, but I mean, I guess it is what it is. But hey, at least hopefully we never lose the Behemoth and we never lose the Leshen. I hope in the future, if we get things like that again, I hope we don't lose them. To finish off with this section, I want to just mention SOS Flares. Mainly because I like how they work in World much better than I do in Rise. World's SOS Flares, in my opinion, are better because you break it down to, like, what type of quest am I looking for? Optional, investigation, assignments, that kind of stuff. Then you can sort it by, I want to hunt this specific monster, this specific rank, all that stuff like that. That's why World is good. Rise decided to take a huge step back and said, for our SOS Flares, we want to go search for specific quests. No, didn't like that. For the anomaly thing, it was fine, kind of, because you just chose a rank and went with it, or a specific monster and went with it. But for quests specifically, no, it did not work. Don't do it. Bring back Worlds. It was way better. Other than that, that ends this section. Next will be my hopes for the next game. Alrighty, finishing this off. Hopes that I would like. I've got a few topics here. Let's see. So the first one, world-like map design. I much rather prefer World's design for their maps. They're very well thought out. They're very detailed. They're very beautiful. Somehow people get lost in the ancient forest. I don't really have that problem, but I guess I can see how it can happen. But spend more time there, I guess. I don't know what to tell you. But I do think the design of the maps is very good. My only problem... the only problem I really had is with the desert. The desert just feels too small. There's not enough desert, you know what I mean? But other than that, I do hope we get the same amount of attention to detail in new maps coming. For the next topic... Okay, this is one that's going to get me canceled, probably. So I wrote the topic as, should they expand more on the vertical or attempt underwater again? So when I say that, I guess I mean, like, should they focus more on, like, the aerial stuff, like how they have been doing, or the verticality of the maps, that kind of stuff like that, or underwater? So I don't know how much farther we could go in the aspect of verticality in the air, aside from, like, pulling a Wild Hearts and giving us a weird fucking helicopter thing. No, we don't need that in Monster Hunter. But so here's my thing with underwater combat, right? I do love the underwater combat in 3 and 3U. I think I don't know if they will bring it back. I really don't. But I'll make a very good argument for the possibility of it coming back. And it's one word. Legiacris. The Monster Hunter team knows how passionate we have been about Legiacris. They know how badly people wanted it back in World and Iceborne. I think, knowing how much they listen to the community, I think they would want to try and get Legiacris into the next game. But when I say that, my brain says the only way they would do that is I feel they would try to go the extra mile and say, hey, if we're bringing Legiacris back, we want to bring him back in all of his glory, which is bringing back underwater combat for him. And I feel like they would do it. So that would be my argument as to why I would think underwater combat may be coming back. I mean, hey, it's been what, fucking 13 years, I think? I would think maybe they've had somebody trying to get underwater combat working better. The biggest problem with it, I feel, is the balancing. So maybe. I really hope so, because it's definitely untapped potential. The next thing here, it's very minimal. The topic is immersion focus. And by immersion focus, I also mean like story focus. I do have plans to maybe do a video on this later, mainly because I do feel that immersion in Monster Hunter is very important. Especially like the story and everything too. So I definitely think the next game is going to have much heavier of a focus on the story. And especially with how they've been teasing things, I really do hope they bring back some familiar faces as well. Oh man, I've got... You know what, this one's an impromptu one. I almost hope that we go back to the old world in the next game. Especially with how they've been teasing it. I don't think it'll be something like Generations where, you know, they'll say, okay, you'll be going to all these different cities and all this stuff. I don't think it'll be like that. Unless maybe like our quote-unquote spin-off game is a remaster or a HD collection or something like that. But I do think the next game will be going back to the old world. And I would really hope that we see some familiar faces again. I think that would be fucking awesome. The next one I have here, weapon and armor design. Simply put, we don't want any copy-paste weapons. That shit was so fucking lazy. And I wrote it here kind of just thinking, because as far as my brain's not fucking working. I'm pretty sure in Rise there's like one set of armor for every monster, which is weird, especially coming off World. I could be wrong. Rise and Sunbreak, man, my fucking brain is like melted with those games with how much I've been farming them. To simply put it, my biggest hope would be that they bring back gunner armor. Mostly the design of the gunner armor. My favorite thing, like, because I'm not a gunner, I don't use the ranged weapons, but my favorite thing about the ranged armor was that they had that, like, depending on what it was, it had this massive, like, shield-like armor on the left arm, and it made absolute fucking sense, because that was the arm, like, holding the front of the gun, or holding the bow, like, that, it made sense. It was fucking awesome, and a lot of the designs were fucking cool as shit, man. Some of the gunner armor looked better than the Blade Master armor. Not even a lie. I'd also love to see the alpha and beta sets come back too. It added more customization for your builds and whatnot. Another big hope I have. I would love to see the Wyporium come back. And when I say I'd love to see it come back, I mean a specific aspect of it, which is and we know not every monster is going to be in the game. In 4U, the Wyporium, you could actually trade monster parts for parts of monsters that were not in the game. So, for example, let's say Argosy isn't in the next game, right? Well, maybe you can trade... I think in 4U it was like you could trade Great Jaggy parts for Argosy parts. It was something weird like that. But it was a way for you to still get those armor sets and weapons in the game without the monster being there. I feel that's a great way to bring that back, especially with our layered armor and weapons now. I mean, it would definitely give people a lot more reason to get on that grind for fashion, because we know Monster Hunter fashion is very important for some people. Now this is a big one, and this will probably get me canceled. I say again, Decos and Charms. I am going to do a video on this, because this short little section here is not going to be long enough to really explain what I mean. I want to see craftable charms come back. I also want craftable decorations to come back. I also want meldable charms to come back, as well as farmable decorations. Again, I will be making a video on this topic, because this short little bit is not enough to explain what I mean. I don't want to be rambling for like 20 minutes. So I will leave it at that for now, and I will explain myself in a video down the road. Another one here, just because I do enjoy it, I would love to see the Prowler come back. Like I said, it's kind of a joke, but at the same time, I really did enjoy the Prowler. I know people did like it, and I thought it was a great way to kind of be like, you know what, I don't want to play my Hunter, I don't want to play any of these weapons, let me play my cat. I really loved playing the cat sometimes. The cat was fun. And you know what, a way to balance it, just make it to where it counts as a feint if you go down. I think that's fine. Or, like, make it a couple acorns like it is in Gen. Like, it's fine, man. Bring the cat back. The Prowler's fun. Give it updated skills, too. Because, like, our barebone cat in the base games are fine, but I think expanding on it a little bit could be nice. And finally, if nothing else throughout this entire video gets me, like, canceled or destroyed in the comments, or, you know, people reacting to the video specifically for this part, or for anything else, people are going to tear me apart for this one, probably. My biggest hope for the game, I want weaknesses to be made more important. Now, what do I mean by that specifically? I'll follow it up with, we should be rewarded for exploiting weaknesses. And then I'll also follow that up with the kicker, which is that I want requirements for part breaks to be a major factor in the game again. So the easiest way I can explain this, in older games, some monsters required specific elements to break parts. For example, the only way you could break, like, Lunastra's horns was with dragon damage and dose. I believe it's the same way in Freedom Unite. I honestly don't remember. Another one that comes to mind is Blonganga. Blonganga, you had to hit his teeth with at least 1 point of fire damage to break them. There are other ones that come to mind too. Granted, it's one we still have, Baroth. You have to deal bludgeoning damage to break his crown. One we've lost, that Mizu has actually picked up. Mizu's tail break takes 2 cuts. Narga's tail used to take 2 breaks. Daimyo's Shell may still require bludgeoning damage. I don't think it does, though. No, it doesn't, because I've broken it with dual blades. What the fuck am I talking about? In Rise, yeah. So, like, I want these things to come back, because it incentivizes the play, and some people will say it's redundant, because they'll look at it as, like, our whole job is just to kill the monster. You're not wrong, but, like, back in the day, especially back in the day, people specifically went to areas of the monster because that's where they shined. Your bludgeoning weapons went to the head, your bladed weapons usually went to the tails. Or the feet, depending on which one it was, because dual blades tripped really well because they hit like fucking crazy. Tail cuts, super important. Wing breaks, super important. Breaks used to be important. Nowadays, it happens at the fucking, like, with no issues at all, and it sucks. I personally think, and granted this may be a controversial statement, but I think maybe sometimes you shouldn't get all the breaks. Break threshold should maybe be higher, I think. And granted, this is all just kind of off cuff. If I thought about it a little bit harder, I might be able to think of ways it could be balanced, or ways that it could be implemented better. And then, yeah. And then for my final means of cancellation here, I don't have a problem with the way Alatreon's fight is. I know a lot of people complained and bitched and hollered, oh, it took away my agency. I had to play a specific way. You're going to sit here and tell me that you don't expect to have to play a certain way when fighting a black dragon? Especially Alatreon, who has, like, insane control of the elements. I think Alatreon's fight's perfectly fine. And it definitely exemplifies my idea of much more challenging fights. Now, is that for everything? No, absolutely fucking not. I feel that Alatreon was a great jumping point. The Arch-Tempered Elder Dragons were actually really fucking good as well. Were they hard as fuck? Absolutely they were. But they were still very good fights. They were balanced very well. Did they hurt like hell? Absolutely. But the fights were put together very, very well. And that's something that I feel can't really be argued against. Some people will say it's bullshit. I know the Namiel fight, like, it was probably one of the hardest ones next to Extremeth that I had. But the Namiel fight was really fucking good. Anytime you messed up, you knew it was your own fault. These are the kinds of things I want to see more of in the next Monster Hunter game. Give us things to deal with certain things that come up in fights. Like, the whole thing with Alatreon is, like, yes, you have to use the opposite of the element that he currently has to knock him out of it and keep him in there to continually just shit stomp him. Like, you play around these things. It's just how it is. I would love to see more fights like that, especially in the end game. Especially in the end game, because that's where they belong. But I mean, that's pretty much it. I can't think of anything else specifically right now. Maybe I'll think of something else that I might throw into the comments and, like, pin it so people can see. I don't know. Hey, editing manic here. I'm an idiot. I completely forgot to record an outro. These bits were kind of recorded in segments to make it a little bit easier on myself, but I don't know what happened to me. I was completely out of it. Regardless, if you did enjoy the video, you know, if you want to leave a like or subscribe, definitely feel free to. I definitely, again, encourage discussion. It is so important that people voice what they would like to see or would hope to see. I think it can be a great asset, not only for us as the players, but for the developers as well. They probably don't watch any of these videos. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Who knows? But still, I think it's very interesting to have that out there. People should never be afraid or not want to voice their concerns or their hopes for a series that they love. But hopefully you enjoyed. I'll catch you all later.